Thanks very much, Karima, and thank you everybody for coming today, for coming to support. It's really super to see this many here. The reason I'm here, in 1996, my 6-year-old daughter got ME, and that was a real learning curve. She got an illness, a virus or bacterial infection. I said, "You're lucky it's Friday, you'll be back in primary 1 on Monday." When she didn't get better, you think she'll be better in a week then. And a week or two later, more symptoms appear. She went to school, she came back, and really one of the key days that stuck in my mind, I hadn't thought about this for a while, she'd gone to school, we thought she was better. I picked her up, she said, "Can we go to the play park?" And I said, "Okay, are you all right to walk there? It's a bit longer." And she said, "Oh yes." And we went to the play park, and then she turned around and she said, "I can't walk home." And I actually shouted at her, "You said you could." And I had to get my 2-year-old son out his pushchair and put my 6-year-old daughter in it to get her home. And that was really, I suppose, the first time I realised something was very seriously wrong. And it's also a lesson about post-exertional malaise. People don't know when they're going to feel awful, and they think they feel better, and they go out, and then suddenly they're not. And so she was ill from the age of 6 till she was 19. There is hope. My daughter's 32, that daughter's 32, and she's been well since she was 19. So don't let people tell you that once you've had 5 years, you'll never get better. There are a lot of people who have struggled on for decades, and that's why I'm here. I was here 20 years ago, and Ewan, who's here with us from ME Association, Ewan who has ME, and he was here at that time and has been campaigning ever since. And I don't think sick people should have to campaign to get anything. And that's why we're here. I came back after a number of years, and what I found was, I was surprised. Research has moved on in 20 years, 15 years, when I was working at something else. When I came back a couple of years ago, the research can be quite encouraging, and Mr. Yousaf just referred to the fact that there is hope for developing our understanding. What has not moved at all is the medical profession's position. I am absolutely appalled to come back and find out that they've renamed Munchausen's by proxy, which means children being made ill by their parents, and we had that question mark put in our notes. Instead of this being an incredibly rare condition that parents either say or make their children ill, that there are hundreds of children throughout the country being investigated. I'm not saying it's as bad in Scotland. I don't know the figures for Scotland, but there are hundreds of children in the UK whose families are being investigated for making their children ill because they have ME, and the medical profession mostly will not accept that this is an illness that can be diagnosed. Post-exertional malaise is a real marker for it, and that's why we know that the post-COVID people, many of them, 80% is suggested to be the number that have post-exertional malaise. So of course not everybody who's ill after COVID has ME, and some of them will improve with exercise. But it is really dangerous for people with post-exertional malaise to do exercise, and many people out there still don't know that. And the people who most don't know it are the medical profession, as Stuart alluded to and Joe alluded to. And so we're here to try and look for some changes. And Stuart asked whether things have improved, and I would say back then we thought, we didn't say every day we're lucky, but we kind of realised after some years we were lucky. We were lucky because she was only moderately ill. I mean, she was virtually not in school, but she wasn't in a wheelchair. But of course she wasn't in a wheelchair because she was in her bedroom. You know, that was why she wasn't in a wheelchair. It's not a thing of your legs don't move at all. It's just that you can't do it. We thought we are lucky that it was only 8 months to a diagnosis. That's because we took her to England, to Nigel Spade, who still is one of the only paediatricians in the UK who has fought for these children, and he gave her a diagnosis. We were lucky because the social services never came near us, and we thought, well, that's good. And one of the reasons we didn't move to Lothian. We did not apply for jobs that were in Lothian because it had a record of investigating these children who weren't in school. And so we thought we were lucky, but we were really lucky because she got better at 19. And we did a lot of things, but one of the things we did not do was exercise. And so 20 years ago, we were here talking about this. We had debates here, we had a cross-party group, and we had a chief medical officers working group, which I and others, maybe you and were on. And we compromised. We compromised with the medics on that group, but there was a report that came out and it made many of the same recommendations which the reports in 2011 and now in 2021 have made. And the Scottish Government have recently commissioned an independent report about stakeholders and what needs to be done. So we know what needs to be done, and now it needs to be done. And I would say what we need to do does involve the medical profession. They do need ring fence money. I'm sorry, but that is the reality, because if it's given for other things, like the Neurological Alliance, it will not be spent on ME. Because most of the doctors who see most of these people, and correct me if I'm wrong, don't understand that they're really ill, and they don't actually care. And until some of them are almost in tears, instead of everyone here coming out of these appointments in tears, then something is badly wrong. And it's wrong in the medical profession, in the schools. The schools mostly teach nothing about ME, maybe 2 hours I've heard. And a recent study by a medical student showed that most doctors, 70% of them, thought ME was rare, and 30% of them thought it was psychological. And so that training needs to start, and it needs to start now. And for that to happen, what we need the MSPs to do? We need them to do what they're doing and showing this interest, and it's great to see how many have come out. It's great to see that the Minister has come out. That is good news. But they need to take responsibility for the medical profession and get something done about it. It's as important as money. If a doctor said to someone with diabetes, well, I'm not giving you insulin because actually I've read that that's not really important, they would not get away with it. But if you go in and you see a doctor and they say, well, I've got nothing I can do for you, and what's more, I don't want to see you for another 2 years, and I have nothing to offer you. Maybe you'd like to go and see a psychiatrist. And I mean, some things have changed a bit in the medical profession, I think, from what I hear. I think they changed the way they talk. So when I first took my daughter to a consultant, and I said, well, what do you think caused her to faint and causing these headaches? And what would you suggest? And he said, well, quite frankly, I think if it carries on, I would suggest a psychiatrist. Now, that was within a few weeks of her being ill. I think they wouldn't rush as quickly to say that now. They've got the language for it. And so I've not been involved in this life for 13 years, and for that my family is grateful, but I am very aware that people have it worse, and that some people's life is just a living hell, and it cannot go on. It is abuse by the medical profession, and it needs the politicians to say, okay, this has to change. The medical schools do not have free rein. It is the NHS. It's not as though you're paying somebody and picking your doctor. It's the NHS, and they have to be told this cannot go on. So thank you very much.